Render effects in 3ds Max are a special type of post-process effect that gets overlaid on top of the final rendered image. Some effects, like the lens effects, can be used to create complex visual elements like lens flare, while others are simpler, like the film grain effect. In this lesson, we're going to render a scene and apply the film grain effect to the final rendered image. In the Quick Access toolbar, click Open. From the Chapter 9 subdirectory, choose the file Chapter 9 renderEffect01.max, and then click Open to open the file. When the file opens, we're presented with the cafe set with a stage light hanging behind the characters illuminating the scene. We're going to render this scene and apply a render effect that will simulate film grain. The first thing we need to do in order for the render effect to work is change the type of image that Mental Ray renders. From the main toolbar, click the Render Setup button to open the Render Setup dialog box. When the Render Setup dialog box opens, click on the Render options in order to open the Renderer panel. The option we're looking for is called the Frame Buffer type, and it's located in the Sample Quality rollout. Go ahead and click on the Frame Buffer type dropdown, and you'll see two different types of frame buffers. One is called integer, and the other is called floating point. The integer frame buffer uses fewer colors than the floating point frame buffer type. And in order to use certain render effects with Mental Ray, you must use the integer frame buffer type. Once you have the integer frame buffer type selected, go ahead and close the Render Setup dialog. From the main menu, click on the Rendering menu option and choose Effects from the Rendering menu dropdown. This opens the Environment and Effects dialog box. Let's go ahead and add a render effect. In the Render Effects rollout, click the Add button on the right-hand side of the rollout. From the Add Effect dialog, click on the Film Grain option, and then click OK to add the film grain effect. In order to see the effect, we need to render the scene. One thing that we can do that will allow us to adjust the film grain parameters and see our finished image at the same time is to turn on the interactive option. In the preview area, click the interactive checkbox to activate the interactive mode. This will render an image of the scene and overlay the film grain render effect. In the interactive mode, we can adjust the grain parameters and visually see the changes in the rendered view in real time. Go ahead and make some adjustments to the grain value. If you click and drag the scroll wheel for the grain effect, you can increase and decrease the effect and see what it looks like as you make the change. Let's make the effect a little bit more subtle and set the grain value to a value of 0.15. We've just gone ahead and added the film grain render effect to our scene and set up a method for interactively adjusting the amount of grain in the image. Go ahead and close the Environment and Effects dialog box, and go ahead and close the render frame window. Press Ctrl S to save the file.